How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. I recently did a video on 5 depreciated supercars that were pretty much heading towards becoming slightly more affordable. And I said that if I got 1,000 likes on that video, I would do a follow-up video. So this is that video. All 5 of these cars have depreciated pretty significantly since they were released, and I've ordered them from least to most annual depreciation. Remember, I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and remember that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, all that good stuff is important to remember. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe as well if you're new, but without further ado, let's get into the video. Starting us off at number 5 is the most expensive car on this list still, but also probably the one that many people would have given the choice, the Lamborghini Aventador LP700-4, with its 6.9 litre V12 engine, which puts out 690 brake horsepower, more than any other car on this list, which gets to 60 in 2.8 seconds, faster than any other car on this list. If you watch a lot of car YouTubers, you'll probably know a thing or two about the Aventador, as people like Stradman, TG, and many others have owned them in many different guises. The LP700-4 that I'm focused on in this video though was the first type of Aventador made available, following on from the Murcielago as being the top of the line Lambo. It gained a lot of its design features from the Reventon, as well as the Aston concept car, and has a particularly strange feature for a supercar of its prowess, a single clutch system rather than the dual clutch you might expect. It also has a Haldex all-wheel drive system underneath, similar to many Audis, which helps it to reach that insane 2.8 second 0 to 60 time. On release, the car was massively praised, with Car and Driver naming it the best Lamborghini ever, although some noted it was a bit boring compared to older Lamborghinis as it wasn't quite as savage to drive. Either way, it remains a poster car today and an ambition or dream for many. I know I'd have one. Not only is it the most powerful and quickest on this list, it also has the least annual depreciation. As adjusted for inflation, it was £308,814 in 2011, but they're now being listed for around £147,000 at the bare minimum, and good examples start at around £155,000. That means 52% total depreciation, or around 5.2% annually. On reliability, it's actually quite hard to tell given that it's not a common car, but it's worth noting that there were a few recalls which should have been sorted out anyway, and the 2012 examples are renowned for having problems with their computers and transmissions, with a few having to have complete gearbox replacements due to failures. It's also known to overheat if stuck in traffic for too long, or the clutch is known to overheat as well. Most importantly though, services aren't cheap and are required once every 5,000 miles, so better have a big wallet still to keep one going. Next up we have the Ferrari 458 Italia, a household name at this point in terms of supercars, with its 4.5 litre V8 engine putting out 562 brake horsepower, which takes from 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. It was a whole new car with a new design and structure to the F430 it replaced, and Ferrari aimed to include some of their F1 technology during its development. Pininfarina were responsible for the actual look of the car, and the focus was on aero efficiency, hence the car has little winglets in the front grille that lower at higher speeds to reduce drag. The interior was also designed with help from F1 legend Michael Schumacher, aiming to be reminiscent of Ferrari race cars, particularly in terms of the steering wheel, which has a bunch more functions than you'd expect on it, kind of like in a race car. In addition to this, the direct fuel injection was a first for Ferrari, at least in terms of their mid-engined cars. Sadly, it doesn't come as a manual, which is another first for any non-special edition Ferrari models, but is pretty normal for supercars anyway, especially considering it was Ferrari who developed and popularised the paddle gearbox with the F355, and in the 458 it's a 7-speed dual clutch system. Like the Aventador, the car has been highly regarded and won Car of the Year in 2009 as well as Supercar of the Year, and owners have generally been very pleased with their ownership experiences judging by forums. A brand new model in 2012, adjusted for inflation, would have cost £215,546. Now you'll find a 2012 listed for a minimum of around £110,000, with decent examples generally available for around £130,000. That's 49% depreciation in total, or just under 5.5% depreciation per year, which is actually pretty reasonable, and some of the older 2009-2010 models have maintained value even better, especially when compared to one of their newer stablemates later in this video. Ferrari specialists note that there's a tendency of people in the market to go for these as low mileage as possible, but suggest that this might not actually be the best bet, as these examples might not have gotten past their early gremlins. 10 to 20,000 miles is more around what they suggest based on what I could find online, and make sure you don't get an early model that was accidentally not recalled, when some of them were catching fire due to wheel arch adhesive. But of course, it's a Ferrari, so remember that even though you might have £110,000 to spare, you need to be able to keep the car running. In third, we have the second generation generation Aston Martin Vanquish, which hosts a 5.9 litre V12 engine, putting out 565 brake horsepower, which takes it from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, sadly making it the slowest car on this list. While the first generation had the honour of being a Bond car in the film Die Another Day, the second gen never had the chance. That said, I would argue it's much nicer looking as a car anyway, taking some of its design principles from the hallowed 177, and that's both on the exterior and the interior. It's also a design evolution from the DBS, which was a Bond car, so it has that going for it too, as well as the carbon fibre side skirts that let you know about the car's carbon fibre body. It comes as either a 2-seater or a 2+2, and that interior I mentioned comes in numerous different specs, but the basic materials are leather and Alcantara throughout, which is pretty nice. Never been a huge fan of Aston interiors, but this one is pretty reasonable. It's not all about aesthetics though, as the car comes with carbon ceramic brakes for better stopping power, lightweight and advanced suspension for better handling, and multiple modes for the adaptive dampers, including track for when you want to absolutely blitz it. These are listed for a minimum of around £70,000 now, and decent examples sit at around £90,000 with the updated engine. Considering this car was around £223,000-ish when new when you adjust for inflation, that's a total drop of around 69% or 9% annually, which is a pretty hefty fall. Owners and specialists alike note the car is actually very reasonable on reliability, which is good to hear, and speak highly of it being a lot of car for the money generally, as you can use it for most occasions, from fancy dinners to cruises to long road trips to track days. It has a hefty maintenance price and schedule, as you might expect from a car like this, but there are plenty with pretty high miles on them already, proving its longevity. So if you do like the look of it, which I certainly do, definitely one to consider. So I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, please do hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe as well if you want to see 2 videos every week, and I wanted to mention I recently got a Discord server, the link will be down below in the description. If you want to join, come have a chat. There's loads of great people on there having, I don't know, community time and enjoying it, I guess. So if you want to get involved, link in the description. Just missing out on the top spot, which is probably a good thing in this video, it's the Ferrari GTC4Lusso T with its 3.9 litre twin turbocharged V8 engine, which puts out 601 brake horsepower and takes it to 60 in 3.4 seconds. The car originally dropped in 2016 in V12 all-wheel drive format, and the T came shortly after in 2017 as the rear-wheel drive, smaller engined example. It maintained the 4-wheel steering from the non-T though, along with the same basic design. The car has actually been recently discontinued as of August 2020, and at the time of making this video, a replacement has not yet been announced. It picked up where the FF left off, maintaining the fastback style shooting brake look, but taking design principles from the F430 and Enzo in terms of the quad circular rear lights. Interestingly, this car came after Ferrari and Pininfarina parted ways, and I would say it hit with a bang still, as though I actually quite like the look of the FF, the GTC4Lusso hits very nicely indeed. The thing people do complain about on these though is the sound. Reviews note that the V12 has a much richer soundtrack than the twin-turbo V8, as you might expect. They do also mention that it is a very agile and quick car nonetheless, and there is general consensus that the car is better in most aspects than its FF predecessor. The interior is classic Ferrari, race-inspired but somehow luxurious and refined enough for the car to remain a Grand Tourer, and I personally am a fan for sure. On release just 3 years ago at the time of making this video, these are around £208,000 adjusted for inflation, but now the cheapest examples are £135,000, with good examples available for around that or a tiny bit more. Total depreciation is therefore 35%, but annually that's almost 12%, which is pretty nuts. As this car is so new, there aren't very many reports on how reliable it is long term, though I did spot a few owners on forums who noted getting lemons, having battery issues, oil leaks and squeaks from the interior, which you wouldn't expect from a car of this value. A few owners have noted software issues, but nothing that couldn't be fixed with an update, but again, it's a Ferrari, so you're buying into a nice service schedule or risk tanking either the car or its value or both. It would genuinely be rude if a McLaren didn't take the top spot on this video, ordered by average annual depreciation, wouldn't it? But this time it's the GT with its 4 litre twin turbocharged V8, putting out 611 brake horsepower, which gets from 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. Very punchy for a car that's supposedly a Grand Tourer. It's McLaren's first car built specifically as a Grand Tourer, but sits on the same platform as the 720S and shares the same basic engine, just a new iteration of it. It gains a nice long carbon fibre rear rear deck to increase storage space and ultimately make it useful as a Grand Tourer. There are even more features that are relevant to the 720S as well, like the suspension system and the Pro Active chassis control. The car was made specifically so that you could fit 420 litres of storage in the rear, which is just enough to get a full set of golf clubs in there, while there's a further 150 litres in the front. That does, however, mean you couldn't necessarily take a friend golfing, as you could only fit one set of clubs in the car. The interior is a stark contrast to other McLarens, swapping Alcantara and race vibes for a Napa leather style interior or cashmere. The seats are comfort focused rather than race focused, and the infotainment system is also based around day-to-day use rather than being more bare bones. Now, of course, McLaren have often been slammed for their depreciation, which is pretty savage, as I really do like their cars. It doesn't take away from the fact that these were £165,000-ish 2 years ago when you adjust for inflation, but are now just around £117,000, with even very low mileage examples sitting below £120,000. That means 29% total depreciation, but almost 15% annually, which is just mad. Now, there isn't much on reliability for these, but McLaren don't have the best service record, so something to be aware of. Instead, the majority of chat on these is confusion over their real purpose. It's apparently not as wafty as a Grand Tourer should be, but then it's also not as competent as a 720S, so in the supercar spectrum it's kind of in a weird place. I actually mentioned this a long time ago in a Q&A video. If I was going to buy a Grand Tourer, I'd buy from a company synonymous with Grand Tourers, but if I was going to buy a track-focused supercar, then I would consider buying a McLaren. It's horses for courses, basically. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you learned something. If you did, I'd massively appreciate a like. Thank you very much in advance. Big thanks to the patrons as always, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.